Namaste and welcome to Daily News Simplified, the what, why, and how of newspaper reading.
Now we would be analyzing the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper of 3rd of December 2018, and the news that would be covered today is given on the screen, and the timestamp for the same is given in the description and the comment section given below. And so now with this, let us start with the first article. Now we have taken this article from the editorial page on page 8. Now what this article references to is the death of George W. Bush, who was the President of the United States from 1989 to 1993. Now you have to understand one difference was that George W. Bush was President from 1989 to 1993, and it was his son, George W. Bush Jr., who was the US President during 9/11 and the Iraq War. Now what this article talks about is the new world order that was formed during the presidential period of George Bush the Senior. And therefore what is required for you to understand for your UPSC examination is what is New World Order. Now the New World Order and the upcoming explanation would first be placed in GS Paper 1 within the section History of the World. And apart from this, it would also be placed in GS Paper 2 within the section International Relations. And within the subsection Effect of Policies and Politics of Developed and Developing Countries on India's Interest. Now the first aspect that you need to understand is what is New World Order. Now a New World Order is used to refer to any period of history in which there has been a dramatic change. First in the balance of power in global politics, and secondly in the functioning of global governance. And it is within this respect that this article talks about a new world order which was formed during the period of George W. Bush during the 1990s, wherein what had happened was the breakup of the Soviet Union, in which during the Cold War the balance of power was divided between the Soviet Union and the United States. But after the breakup of the Soviet Union in 1990, the balance of power shifted completely towards the United States. And therefore this period of history in which there was a dramatic change in the balance of power led to the formation of a new world order. And if you take into context of global governance, then the most recent period of history was after the Second World War, in which a new global governance was formed by the countries that had won the Second World War, in which the United Nations was formed, the WTO, the World Bank, and various other global institutions for global governance. So now hopefully up till here you have a conceptual understanding as to what is New World Order. Now one of the aspects that we continue to highlight when understanding any concept or any topic that appears in the Hindu newspaper or the Indian Express or any other paper that you follow, try to understand as to how this topic has been explained within the NCERT textbooks, wherein that would provide you a comprehensive understanding of that topic for your UPSC examination, wherein the concept of the New World Order has been explained in the class 12th NCERT book from the subject of political science within the textbook Contemporary World Politics. So now what we'll do is try to understand on how the NCERT textbook has explained New World Order. Now we have taken this chapter 3, US Hegemony in World Politics, from the class 12th NCERT textbook called Contemporary World Politics. Now as you already understand that the New World Order was formed in the early 1990s, and the main cause for the formation of this New World Order was the dissolution or the breakup of the Soviet Union. And therefore the main effect of this New World Order that was formed was that it led to US hegemony in world politics. Wherein as you already know that after the end of the Cold War, it left the United States without any serious rival in the world politics, because it was during the Cold War that the main rival of the United States was the Soviet Union. And therefore this era, which is called the New World Order, has been described as a period of US dominance or a unipolar world. And therefore as the NCERT book highlights, it led to the beginning of a new world order, which was caused by the sudden collapse of the Soviet Union, which led to the establishment of US hegemony in 1991. Now after this, what the book provides is the first example of the emergence of this new world order, wherein what had just happened in 1990 was that the Saddam Hussein government of Iraq invaded the country of Kuwait, and this led to the first Gulf War. Now what used to happen earlier is that if any war broke out in any part of the world, it would go to the United Nations Security Council. However, because of the rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, the United Nations Security Council was not able to take any form of decision with regards to the ongoing global wars. And this happened during the Vietnam War, during the Bangladesh War, and various other conflicts within the African continent. However, this first Gulf War was the first time that the United Nations took a decision to send a military force for the liberation of Kuwait. And it was after this that the United Nations Security Council was able to function properly, and the US was able to lead the first Gulf War in liberating Kuwait. That the then US President George H.W. Bush Sr. said that the first Gulf War is the first example of the emergence of a new world order. So now hopefully up till here you've understood these three main aspects as of the period of history, the cause and the effect of the new world order. And apart from this, you've also understood the first main example is the first Gulf War, in which the United Nations Security Council, which was not able to perform during the Cold War because of the rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union, was able to undertake a military operation under the leadership of the United States for the liberation of Kuwait from Iraq. So now hopefully you've understood the various aspects of the New World Order. Now a question for your practice is which of the following are the key attributes of the current world order system? And what you need to do is pause this video, solve this question and wait for 5 seconds for the correct answer. Now the correct answer to this question is C, both 1 and 2. When you already understand that the New World Order, which was formed after the breakup of the Soviet Union, is based on US hegemony or US dominance of global governance. Apart from this, the Bretton Woods systems, such as the World Bank, the World Trade Organization, and various other global institutions, were formed after the Second World War. However, they continue as major systems of global governance during the current world order. And therefore, because of this, both 1 and 2 are correct. Now, apart from this, there is a question which has been asked in the NCERT textbook as to which among the following statement is wrong about the contemporary world order. And now what you can do is again pause this video, solve this question and wait for 5 seconds for the correct answer. Now the correct answer to this question is C. Now according to the NCERT textbook, states are not using force against one another and therefore the statement C is incorrect. However, apart from this, if you read the statements A, B and D, you can understand that 3 of these statements are correct, wherein there is an absence of world government in the current world order, the US is the predominant player in world affairs, or that the US continues its hegemony in world affairs, and lastly, states which violate international law are severely punished by the United Nations, wherein a particular example of this is the first Gulf War, in which the country of Iraq was punished for waging a war against the country of Kuwait. So now hopefully you've understood as to what is New World Order. Now question for practice for your mains examination is the ongoing global trade war and the rise of China have indicated a shift in the global world order. Examine the role of India in shaping the new world order. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 18. Now what this article talks about is that NASA is launching a rocket into space to study how the Earth's atmosphere is leaking into space. So now what we'll do with regards to this article is first understand about the leaky atmosphere of Earth, and after that understand about the rocket that is being launched by NASA. Now before understanding as to what is a leaky atmosphere, you need to understand that the mass of oxygen is roughly 16 times the mass of hydrogen, and therefore what had been assumed was that oxygen was too heavy to escape the gravity of Earth, and therefore for oxygen to escape the gravity of Earth, it would require a very large amount of energy. But what has been found out is that oxygen receives a large amount of energy to escape the atmosphere of Earth from an external source known as aurora borealis. Now an aurora, which is sometimes referred to as polar lights or northern lights, are typically seen in high altitude regions around the Arctic and Antarctica. And it has been considered that aurora play a fundamental role in the process of atmospheric escape, whereby planets including Earth gradually leak their atmosphere into the space through the process of aurora. So now hopefully up till here you've understood as to what is a leaky atmosphere, and you also understand that this leakage of oxygen from Earth's atmosphere is occurring from where the auroras are formed, and this Visions 2 mission will check the processes on how the aurora is heating and energizing oxygen and thereby providing it energy to escape Earth's atmosphere. Now this Visions 2 mission will follow the earlier Visions 1 mission which was launched by NASA in 2013. Now you have to understand that we'll have to wait and see on how the results from Vision 2 come forward with regards to how the aurora affects the heating and the energizing of oxygen so that it leaves Earth's atmosphere. Now with regards to your upcoming prelims examination of 2019, it is important to know the purview of the Visions 2 mission of NASA and apart from understanding as to what is a leaky atmosphere. Now, question for practice is Visions 2 was recently in the news in the context of, and as you already understand, pause this video, solve this question, and wait for 5 seconds for the correct answer. Now, the correct answer to this question is A, that it is a mission of NASA to visualize the ion outflow, or the proper term to describe the leakage of the ions of oxygen from the Earth's atmosphere. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now I've taken this article from page 11. Now what this article talks about is that the Air Force of India and the United States will begin a military exercise known as XCOP. And therefore this is the only small aspect that we need to understand from this article within the concept of India's relationship with the United States and with regards to your upcoming prelims examination of 2019. And apart from this, the military exercise that is conducted between the Indian Army and the US Army is known as Yuddha Abhyas. And an important aspect that you should remember is that India does not conduct any form of bilateral naval exercises with the United States. And what India and the United States currently conduct are called the Malabar naval exercises, which also includes the participation of Japan. So now hopefully you understood the three main military exercises that are conducted between India and the United States. Now apart from this, you also need to understand that up till now, no questions on military exercises have been asked in the prelims examination. But nevertheless, these military exercises should be understood and remembered with regards to India's relationship with the United States. Now, mains question for your practice is evaluate the aspects of convergence and divergence in India-United States relationship in the post-2017 scenario. Now, what we'll do with regards to this question is first provide the basic structure on how to write this question and the various facts and concepts that can be cited within this answer. Now both of these components are provided in the PDF, whose link is given in the description section given below, whereby this is one of the means in which we can try to help you for self-evaluation, for writing of answers for the mains examination. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 6. Now what we'll try to understand from this article are various aspects of the Hornbill festival. Now before understanding the various aspects, let us understand on how questions have been asked in your previous prelims examination with regards to various festivals which are held in the Northeast. Now it is relevant for you to remember basic facts about this festival because previously questions have been asked with regards to various traditions which are followed in the Northeastern states, and this question was asked in the prelims of 2018. Well, a question was asked in the prelims of 2017 with regards to Manipuri Sankirtana, which is a song and dance form in the state of Manipur. And in similar terms, a question was asked in the prelims of 2015 with regards to the unique living root bridges are found in which state, wherein the correct answer to this question would be A, Meghalaya. And it is within this context wherein the cultural history of the northeastern states are asked in the prelims examination. Now the first thing that you need to understand about the Hornbill festival is its location, wherein it is held in the village Kisama in the state of Nagaland. And this Hornbill festival of state of Nagaland coincides with the Nagaland Statehood Day, which is of 1st of December. And generally the Hornbill festival of Nagaland is held from 1st of December till 10th of December. And it is within this aspect that the purpose of the Hornbill festival is to promote the cultural heritage of the state of Nagaland. And now these are the main aspects that are required to be remembered with regards to the Hornbill festival of Nagaland. Now a related question for your practice is consider the following statements on the Great Hornbill. And as you already understand, pause this video, solve this question and wait for 5 seconds for the correct answer. Now the correct answer to this question is D, 1, 2 and 3, wherein the Great Hornbill is listed as near threatened in the IUCN list and is protected under the Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 and is also found in the Western Ghats and the northeastern parts of India. Wherein previously a question was asked in the prelims examination of 2016 in which it had asked as to where you can find the Great Hornbill, and one of the options that was given was of Western Ghats. And apart from this, you should also remember that it is also found in the northeastern part of India. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from the editorial page on page 8. Now what this article talks about is raising the farmer's income by diversifying the opportunities that are available to farmers. Now in the basic crux of this article, what the author is trying to say is that we can increase the income of the farmer by increasing the non-farm income that are available to farmers. And this non-farming income can be formed by increasing the opportunities in the livestock sector. And this is the main crux of this article that the author is trying to highlight, wherein the income of the farmers can be increased through non-farming means. And one of the main non-farming means through which the income can be increased is by increasing the opportunities in the livestock sector, wherein the farmers would be able to earn money through the dairy sectors, the meat industry, and other forms of opportunities that the livestock sector provides. And they can form an extra means of income for the farmers. And with regards to your UPSC examination, this article and the upcoming explanation would be placed in GS paper 3 within the section Economic Development, and first within the subsection Economics of Animal Rearing, secondly within the section related to employment, and lastly issues related to inclusive growth. So now let us understand this article further in depth. Now this article highlights the various figures which have been given by the All India Rural Financial Inclusion Survey, which is carried out by NABARD. And according to this survey, agricultural households derive only 43% of their income directly from agriculture. And apart from this, agricultural households also have a larger share of debt as compared to non-agricultural households. And therefore, it is within that context that the author is highlighting that the government of India should look forward in generating alternative sources of income which would benefit both agriculture and non-agricultural households. And within that aspect, the author has given various solutions, where the first solution given by the author is that there is a need to promote farm diversification so as to provide an additional source of income to both marginal farmers and landless laborers. Wherein what the author means by promoting farm diversification, the author is recommending the rearing of animal livestock, wherein the rearing of livestock can provide an additional income in the form of dairy, meat production, and in other forms that livestock can be used. And with regards to the livestock sector, the author is trying to assert that there is a need to upgrade the best performing indigenous breeds. Apart from this, the feed supply for the livestock, the preventive healthcare, and in addition, a national breeding policy is required for the livestock sector in India. Apart from this, the author is also highlighting that agricultural laborers, when they are not working in the field, try to seek construction related daily wage labor. And by working in the construction sector, the agricultural laborers are able to increase their income. And therefore, the author is trying to highlight that improvement is required in the condition of workers, especially within the construction sector, wherein it is required that these construction workers get access to government schemes, programs, and are also not exploited by the construction companies. And therefore, the author has concluded by saying that there is a need to create long-term sustainable, non-farm employment options for Indian farmers and Indian agricultural laborers. And this would help in promoting inclusive growth as a part of economic development of India. So now hopefully up till here you've understood this article further in depth. Now main question for your practice is the doubling of farmers' income would remain a distant dream if only relied upon boosting income through agricultural means. Suggest measures that can be undertaken to bolster the income enhancing capabilities of farmers and agricultural laborers. Wherein this article highlights two provisions that can be undertaken. First is the rearing of livestock that can be undertaken by Indian farmers to increase their income. And the second being highlighted in the article is the construction sector through which the agricultural laborers are currently enhancing their income. Apart from this, agricultural laborers also undertake construction work under the Manrega program. And these are few of the measures that you can highlight while answering this question. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 14. Now what this article talks about is the Food Sustainability Index. So what we'll do is try to understand this article from the perspective of your upcoming prelims examination of 2019. And before understanding about this index, let us first understand on how questions have been asked in your previous prelims examination with regards to various index. Wherein previously questions have been asked in your prelims examination as to which organization prepares which index. Wherein if you take a look at the prelims paper of 2018, a question was asked as to who prepares the Rule of Law Index, wherein the correct answer to this question is the World Justice Project. Wherein if you take an example of the prelims examination paper of 2017, a question was asked as to who prepares the Global Gender Gap Index report, wherein the correct answer to this question is A. World Economic Forum. And if in similar terms, if you take an example of the prelims examination paper of 2016, it had asked as to what are the indicators of the Global Hunger Index report, And the correct answer to this question is C, 1, 2, and 3. Similarly, it had asked as to who prepares the Ease of Doing Business Index, wherein the correct answer to this question is C, World Bank. And moreover, the 2016 paper had also asked as to who prepares the Global Financial Stability Report, wherein the correct answer to this question is B, International Monetary Fund or IMF. So now if we take a look at the Food Sustainability Index, it is prepared by the Braille Center and the Economist Intelligence Unit. And now when we mean the Economist Intelligence Unit, it means the popular Economist magazine. And those who have been following the Indian Express newspaper might be aware of the various articles that are published in the Economist magazine, which are then republished in the Indian Express. The second aspect that you need to understand are the various components, wherein the first component of the Food Sustainability Index is of sustainable agriculture, nutritional challenges, and the last component being food loss and waste. Now, the Food Sustainability Index contains over 38 indicators and 90 individual metrics, and therefore it is not required to remember all of them. And what is required to remember for your upcoming prelims examination about the Food Sustainability Index are its three components. And it is within this Food Sustainability Index that India has gotten a rank of 33. Now, these are the two main aspects that are required to be understood and remember about the Food Sustainability Index for your upcoming prelims examination of 2019. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 13. Now what this article talks about is that the Reserve Bank of India may continue to maintain the current figures on the repo rate. So now what we'll do with regards to this article is revise as to what is repo rate. Now repo is a short form for repurchase option, and it is a money market instrument which is used to target inflation. Now the legal definition of repo rate as per the Reserve Bank of India Act of 1934 means that repo or the repurchase option is an instrument for borrowing funds, and this fund is borrowed by selling securities, wherein an agreement is signed to repurchase the securities at a mutually agreed future date, and this repurchase at a future date would be at an agreed price and an agreed upon interest rate. So let's say the State Bank of India has some government securities and it wants to sell these government securities to the Reserve Bank of India. Now let's say Reserve Bank of India buys these government securities from the State Bank of India for a period of 1 year at a price of 10 crores and at an interest rate of 7%. Now after this, the State Bank of India would have to buy back these government securities from the Reserve Bank of India after the period of 1 year. And the State Bank of India would have to buy back these government securities from the Reserve Bank of India at an interest rate of 7%. And this interest rate of 7% is known as the repurchase option or the repo rate, wherein the State Bank of India is repurchasing these government securities, and the rate at which this repurchase is being done is known as the repo rate. Now you have to understand that this is a simplified example, but hopefully you've understood the functioning of the repo rate. Now this repo rate or the benchmark policy rate is decided by the 6-member Monetary Policy Committee of the Reserve Bank of India. Now what has happened in this news is that the 6-member Monetary Policy Committee, which is headed by the Governor of the RBI Urjit Patel, has decided not to change the repo rate. And the reason they have decided not to change the repo rate so as to keep the retail inflation at 4%. Now another aspect that you should understand is that if the repo rate is increased, then it is considered that it may lead to less borrowing for commercial banks. There also may be a higher rate for consumer loans that are given out by commercial banks. And lastly, if the repo rate is increased, there may be a chance that it may absorb the excess liquidity in the market. However, if the repo rate is decreased, then it leads to easier borrowing for commercial banks. Apart from this, there is also a chance that it may lead to lowering of rate for consumer loans. And lastly, if the repo rate is decreased, there is also a chance of an increased liquidity in the market. Now you have to understand that these impact of an increase in repo rate or a decrease in repo rate should be seen within the context of being speculative also. However, hopefully you've understood the various aspects with regards to the repo rate, wherein the repurchase option, which is known as the repo rate, is a money market instrument which is used to target inflation, and the legal definition of repo means an instrument for borrowing funds by selling securities. However, these securities which have been sold need to be repurchased on a future date on an agreed price and an interest rate. So if the State Bank of India has borrowed funds from the Reserve Bank of India by selling government securities. And therefore, the State Bank of India would have to repurchase these securities on a later date. And for repurchasing these securities, the State Bank of India would have to pay interest to the Reserve Bank of India. And on the rate on which the State Bank of India repurchases the securities from the Reserve Bank of India is known as the repo rate. And this repo rate is decided by a 6-member monetary policy committee, which is headed by the Governor of the Reserve Bank of India.
And now with this, we come to an end in the analysis of today's newspaper. Now we move on to the question for today.